This is Ruth Hollander doing my Do Something and Report It Home Energy Audit presentation. My residence type is a dorm. Bailey was built in 1956 and it has 116,942 square feet. I live in a double, which averages at 191 square feet. And as you can see in this image here, the median energy consumption for dormitories in the United States is 127 kilobtus per square foot per year. So I used that number to calculate what my estimated energy usage would be. That was 7,109.03 kilowatt hours per year. Some additional context would be that in 2019, 41% of electricity at the University of Minnesota came from renewables, so that's where my electricity comes from as well. Continuing on to break this down a little bit further, this chart is showing what the average consumption or percentages of consumption are for higher education facilities in the Midwest are. So ventilation and cooling make up a large percentage here, lighting, refrigeration, and computing as well. Additional context would be that Bailey Hall does not have AC in one of its wings, so the cooling percentage might be a little bit lower. Here are my audited appliances, and it's listed whether they're constant power or variable power as well. This is my time log for 1 week. It's measured in minutes, and you'll also notice that there's quite a few zeros for some items, but other items were measured for 24 hours a day. And I was able to log this time relatively easily as I live alone, but I still use sticky notes and a stopwatch as my main form of recording. Also, because it was measured in minutes per day, I had to convert to hours per day in order to create my audit table, which you can see here. I didn't have any phantom power recorded, and I also made the decision to measure things in kilowatt hours per year versus kilowatt hours per month in order to compare with my 7,109 kilowatt hours per year estimated. These are my calculations. So for my variable power, after I plugged in my kilowatt meter, for 24 hours, it was measuring at 0.383 kilowatt hours. So divide by the full 24 hours it was measured for, and then ultimately multiply by 24 hours per day, do some converting to kilowatt hours per year. For constant power, I plugged in the kilowatt meter and then plugged in the air freshener. It was reading at 1.4 watts after about 30 seconds and staying there. So I multiply that by its average usage time each day, which was 24 hours, and do some converting to get kilowatt hours per year. Similarly with the light, it had 8.5 watts on the light bulb itself, multiplied by its average usage per day, which is 4.73 hours, and do some converting to get kilowatt hours per year. So we can see that my audit really only accounts for about 5% of what my expected energy consumption was, and of that percentage, the computer charging and refrigerator made up over 80% of that energy consumption. Looking at my audit versus what was expected, lighting and HVAC definitely do not have as big of an influence in my audit. It would have been difficult to measure my HVAC energy consumption as well as my overhead lighting energy consumption, so they're not fully accounted for in my energy audit. But interestingly, compared with the average consumption of other higher ed institutions, computing and refrigeration do play a large role in both of my audit and theirs. Some future improvements would include looking into an Energy Star certified laptop, and also powering down my laptop versus just putting it in the sleep mode, which does use some energy. Also being sure to unplug my refrigerator during winter break will save 11.4 kilowatt hours, and making sure it stays away from the heater in my room will also encourage it to be more energy efficient. An additional note, I considered using a digital timer for my light to see how that would help, and ultimately it only resulted in a 1.5% reduction in kilowatt hours per year consumed if I set it to just 3 hours per day, and that's before considering that the digital timer itself does use energy. So with the digital timer, I actually would have been using more kilowatt hours per year, so that's not an effective method for me. So ultimately, I learned that other than the lighting and heating and cooling aspects that I couldn't really measure, refrigeration and charging my computer are the areas where I consume the most energy in my room. Also, I was curious to learn about my energy consumption with the light and also with my air freshener as I have it plugged in 24/7. So, those were interesting parts of the presentation for me. I'm also still curious about how my greenhouse gas emissions are associated with this energy consumption, specifically because the university is moving towards more renewable energy, and also to see how I compare to other students that are in the dorms. I think of myself as pretty energy conscious and try and make decisions that are going to save energy, but I'd be interested to see what other students are doing and any tips that they have. And here are my sources.